All right. So, um, I don't have like a thorough plan on how this is going to go today. I have some notes to share with you guys, and I think it's going to kind of maybe quickly summarize our previous, Beverly has not read it. Okay. Our previous Pesach study, and then kind of how it pertains to a bit more specifics on removing the leaven from our lives. And so I'm going to get this whiteboard up for you, and we will just refresh. I have redone whiteboards. I have redone the Pesach study, so we'll go through that and a few more things. All right. I'm going to make sure you guys can't do anything. All right. So I did a bunch. And again, thank you to whoever sent this stylus thing. I was able to quickly write all this out. So that was very appreciated. All right. So there's quite a bit, but I'm just going to zoom in on the parts that I need. I love that I can do this. I'm going to just super enjoy doing this. But anyway, all right. Pesach. This is the biblical feast day that starts out the year. For historical context, Pesach was the very first Pesach ever was the Hebrew people escaping or being led and redeemed out of Mitzrayim or Egypt. And I think you guys can still see me. I just can't see you guys. But anyway, um, being in Mitzrayim in bondage, and the Most High has just plagued Mitzrayim with a bunch of different plagues, and this is the final one. The slaughtering of the firstborn. Danilo's coming in. And the way in which this was going to happen is basically the angel of destruction was going to come in. And the way in which the Hebrew people were delivered out of that was to keep Pesach. So this was a slaughtering of a perfect lamb. And the blood of that lamb was painted on the doorpost. And that signal, when the angel of destruction comes in, um, it passes over the home. So it's called Passover or Pesach, and it's about deliverance. It's about not only redemption and deliverance from bondage, but also deliverance from deliverance in a sense of being made perfect. So we can see this as Messiah's sacrifice as the lamb. Um, and so we're going to go through this really quickly. So pay, samek, and ket. I guess I can use a highlighter now that it's already pre-written. Let's see. Highlighter. Oh, my thing does not want to work for that. All right. So this works. Nope, that's just a pen. All right, never mind. I'm not going to try to be fancy. All right, anyway. So we have pay here. Oh my goodness. Here. Then we have samek here. And then ket here. Um, Numerical value 80, 60, and 8. This I don't know how much to go in depth and how quickly to go because I want us to still be able to be followed by those who haven't seen Hebrew studies. But we're going to combine the numerical value and then we're going to combine the meaning for each particular character. So we've done this last week. So Pe, the first character in Pesach, is an open mouth speaking a word spoken. The next character, Tzamek, is support to prop something up, something leaning on something else, or sustaining. And then Chet, the last one, is a fence, a wall, or separation, but it's not just division, it's also a protective wall or a fence. So a sort of shelter and defense. Um, the numeric values. So when we add 60 plus 80 plus 8 is 148. We're going to condense the digits down to get to single digits. And then we have the dalet again. So the dalet is basically the overall value of the word Pesach is for a doorway. It is an entrance, it is a gateway, a portal. And this makes sense. It is something that the Father commanded before the Torah was even there. It is something for all generations. So that's the pay. Walking through the doorway of Passover is crossing over from bondage into freedom, being basically sustained and carried by the Most High. So there's his sustaining, the support, and his basically caring for us. And then that fence, the separation. So it is a doorway into the kingdom where the Father basically sustains and keeps you separate from the outside world. So as of right now, before Pesach, and then before we get through our deliverance, we are just a part of this world. We are in bondage. We are thoroughly mixed up with the world. But through Pesach, through that doorway, we come out of the world. We come out of bondage, both in the physical reality, but more importantly within. So most of you guys should already have that Pesach, but I just kind of, hopefully the quick run through even made sense. But the next thing that I wanted to talk about, so part of this Pesach is the lamb and the blood, but then the second part of it is leaven and unleavened bread and getting the leaven out of the home. And so the very first Pesach, the very first feast of unleavened bread was because they had to eat in such haste and they didn't have time to create bread and let it rise. They basically ate unleavened bread out of necessity. But to remember Pesach for all generations going forward, they were instructed on the first day to remove all the leaven from their homes and for 7 days consume no leaven. And it's a pretty big part of all of this. On the evening of that first day, there's the Feast of Unleavened Bread, or the Feast of Matzot. And so we are going to actually figure out what leaven is. Let me go over here. All right. So the word for leaven, I have right above it yeast cake. Very literally, that's what it means. Leaven, yeast cake. It is made with a sheen, aleph, and resh. So this one is pronounced seor. So that aleph kind of stops the word. I don't know how else to explain it. The aleph doesn't really have its own sound. It's just like creating that apostrophe. So seor is leaven or yeast cake. This is the modern Hebrew. Shin, aleph, and resh. So we're going to do the same process. We have the numeric values on the left, we have the letters or characters, and we have the definitions. So leaven or yeast cake, the literal word of what leaven is in the physical sense, has sheen. So sheen is teeth or eating, consume. It also can be fire or destroy or some sort of destruction. Aleph, which is one, his head, strength, leader, crown, or ox. And then Resh is a man's head, beginning, chief, first. So how I sort of see this, I suppose, is as yeast is spreading through the dough, essentially to ferment the dough, to cause it to rise. It is basically consuming parts of it. So that's literally what yeast does, is it consumes, I think it's sugars. to be honest with you. I'm blanking on that right now, but I think the yeast consumes the sugars. Um, and so that is very interesting that it is kind of right in there. Um, but I also want to focus on like the destruction side of it because this is going into the spiritual meaning. Um, and so then the leader, the strength, the ox or the crown. And so leaven um, consumes or destroys or takes something from the leader, from the strength, from the crown. And this affects the man's head, the beginning, the chief, the first. So, in the physical sense, the leaven is a sort of process of consumption. It's a like a leader, a beginning of a process. So I think this is literally talking about the yeast consuming something, leading into the process of making bread. You can kind of look at it in different ways. Um, for the new joining today, if you have a question, oh yeah. Um, I realize it's also harder for me to keep my thoughts straight with having it already pre-written out. It's very interesting that I'm not actively doing it, so I'm having to like go back and remember. But anyway, hopefully it's making at least some sort of sense. When we're talking about leaven in a sense of today in the spiritual sense, which is like hypocrisy and pride and internal things that we need to get out, which will kind of go in more into that. So the leaven in that sense is a destroyer of the crown of the strength of the inner man. It affects, remember, we were talking about Resh the other day, of Resh is sort of like the seat of our subconscious, sort of like we make most of our decisions from our subconscious brain. It's where our priorities are. And so the leaven, in a spiritual sense, is a destroyer of that crown, the subconscious. It affects how we make our decisions. Um, and so when we add up the gematria, so we have 300 plus 1 plus 200, 501. We add up the digits, so 5 plus 0 plus 1 is 6. So the sixth character in the Hebrew Aleph Bet is Wav. So right here is the Paleo, this is the modern, and this is nail, pierce, connection, hook. Oh, someone's coming upstairs. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just my brother.
OriYah, Tina has
Yeah.
her hand raised.
Oh, yeah. What's up, Tina?
I just wanted to say it's really interesting that 11 equates to the number six because I was reading something the other day that obviously because of the days of creation, number six, humans being created on the sixth day,
Mm-hmm.
six also represents the weakness of man.
Mm.
If you think about
Mm-hmm.
that, that kind of makes sense. So
Yeah, absolutely. And so something that uh what was I gonna say? Mm-mm-mm. I think something to do with Wav. What is it? I don't know. Do you remember, does anybody remember what Ruach added out to be when we did this study recently? I'm curious about.
I
Where did
can find out. I think I have it written down.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, like in my mind, for some reason, I'm thinking it's related to WAF, but like I don't remember. And I deleted it. It was on whiteboard, actually. That's what it is. I think I deleted it. Anyway, the WAV is a connection point. It is a nail. And so when we have, if we can think of like when we have leaven in our lives, it is a sort of faulty connection. It's something that makes us connected to the wrong things. It is something that um, like fully infects the whole thing, the whole body, like the physical leaven. When you store leaven inside something, it eventually spreads and consumes the whole thing. When we have the spiritual leaven in our lives, it so thoroughly infects all that we are that it is like a connection point between us and darkness in a way. Uh, so anyway, I don't know what I was thinking about with the connection to Ruach. I remember doing a study something. I don't remember what it was. Um,
Ruach,
but
it adds to seven. Um,
hmm, okay.
yeah, it has
Well,
the wa in it.
it does have the wall in it. Okay. All right. That might have been it. If there's some other thing, some other point that I need to make, I'm sure it'll come to me. All right. But so below it, so going again, so this is Seor. It's Shin, Elef, and Resh. So what's really interesting is there's a root word that has the exact same characters. So I'm not going to do the whole breakdown again because it's the same exact characters. So it means the same thing at its core. So the root word, it's pronounced Sha'ar. So again, the same characters, Shin, Elef, and Resh, but it means to swell up, or to remain or to be left over, which I think is really, really interesting. So, um, in the context of both the physical leaven, it causes the bread to swell up. So the root word is to swell up. But then if we also take that to the spiritual meaning of what that type of stuff does within us, is it causes us to be swelled up, to be puffed up. And so we'll see that actually in Romans 12 when we look through that and talking about offering our bodies as living sacrifices. Do not think of yourself more highly than you ought to think. And so when we remove the leaven, it causes us to not be puffed up, which I thought that was really interesting. And then the second part is to remain or to be left over. I found this interesting because the Feast of Unleavened Bread, or Chag Hamatzot, is something that it's instructed from before Torah was even given to his people. And it's about removing the leaven from your home and to make sure there's none left over. So I don't know if that's how that ties in, but that's how my brain ties it in of the leaven can be left over and we got to make sure that none of it's left over because even a small amount of it leads to consumption, leads to spreading and corrupting the whole body. So it's really important, basically, to summarize this whole section. It's really important to get the leaven. If you are not wanting to have bread rise, you have to make sure there's no leaven. Even a little bit can spread and consume the entire loaf. And with us today, when we are getting the leaven out of our homes, we want to make sure that we get all the way to the core of who we are, because even a little bit of pride can cause us to swell up. A little bit of envy and bitterness and unforgiveness and things like that can cause us to swell up. And yeah, so even a little bit being left over. Um, so I did write out here the seven ruachos and seven deadly sins with a few other things that there's no official seven deadly sins. There's something that's just kind of widely accepted as the seven deadly sins, but I've added some other things in there. But I think we're gonna take a break real quick. We'll come back to that. I want to talk to you guys for a minute, see if you guys have any thoughts or questions on Pesach and leaven. Um, and then I want to kind of get into homework and what people can expect and that sort of thing about like getting ready. Um, all right, nobody. All right. Yeah, Casey.
Yeah. So I was just thinking about leaven and considering, the leaven in my life, and I have a lot of experience uh with creating fearless and fearless and searching moral inventories, right? Where you sit there and inventory all the bad things about yourself, right? And it's really a good thing, and I would recommend it for
Mhm.
everybody. And this is a great opportunity to do that. This is a where we lay down our problems, our character defects, right? Like the things that we know are not in alignment with the Most High. We lay it down. And if we have to write it out and surrender it that way, then that's a great thing to do. And I've done it several times, and every time it's good, every time. So
Yeah.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
10 out of 10 would recommend. Thank you. I love that. Yeah, that's really kind of what we're doing. So I sent this PDF document to the group. I did manage to get it printed, as well as, is my scripture stuff in here? No. As well as another separate PDF with all the scriptures, which I am actually really excited about it because this is from the Yah scriptures. And when I write all over my Bibles, I highlight, I write notes in the margins and draw little arrows to things. And to be able to have this to kind of go through it, I'm very excited about. Um, so most of you, I think, have read through this or at least started it. Some haven't. But I want to see if I can kind of summarize it, just even for people who are listening, because if I read through all of this, yeah, it's just going to take too much time. So a lot of what this packet is going to get you to do is to start to try to consciously exercise your brain in making neural connect. Oh, yeah, Tina, I see your hand. Yeah, I'll Okay. All right. So we're going to be training our brain to make neural connections of things that typically just exist in our subconscious brain, or things that we've like shoved down so deeply that we don't have an active awareness on. But we are going to be trying to intentionally make certain connections. And so it's going to be a lot of observation, um, a lot of trying to understand pattern recognition. And so what I explain in here is it's sort of like an onion. So I love the quote, ogres have layers, onions have layers, onions have layers, ogres have layers. And it's really like peeling back one layer of a time. So the outer layer contains so much more information, so many things to observe. So there's just more surface area. I'm trying to make this make sense. More surface area of an onion. The outer layers will contain so much more to observe. And you can be satisfied understanding yourself at a surface level. But then as you peel back the layers of yourself with different, by observing different triggers or patterns, um, you can peel back the layers. So like, I'll just kind of give like a really quick example of, um, somebody said something to you and you felt the need to like defend yourself, and like you got kind of snippy, and you just noticed that. So this is a trigger. So we're going to notice that that trigger is what's immediately observable to somebody watching you. And if you take a second to think about that, we're going to peel back the layer of what that trigger was, which looks like, okay, so in that moment, I reacted in a defensive way. When you defend yourself, it is because you're trying to protect something. Something is hurt. That inner child in you was bothered by something. What is it? And you realize, like, okay, so if I was offended, where is that emotional trigger? And so when you sit there, so this a lot would be like, I'm going to try to figure out how to ask questions to probe, but a lot of it will just be sitting with yourself and kind of going through your memories and trying to remember the emotions tied to certain things. And so oftentimes, for example, offense is fear of not being enough. There's a root of if somebody's questioning you, somebody is hurting you, your defensive layer shoots up. And so when we observe the outer behavior, we can kind of trace back the root of, okay, so I was offended by this because I was hurt, because I felt like I wasn't good enough because of that. And then beneath that, we can then go back even, okay, so why do I have this fear of not being enough? And so as we go through that, we're going to look through our memories and recall different times in our lives when we felt like we weren't enough. Um, and oftentimes, a lot of these things go back to childhood. But so it's going to sort of be like following little maps, which is very interesting with Bobby's dream, following maps towards this labyrinth that your inner being is of emotions and traumas and your own ego, your own protective self. So something that I wrote about in this little section is that your very, very inner core nature is like pure innocence and love and light. And when you're born into this world, you have things that hurt you, things that don't make sense, traumas that just don't make sense. And so as you grow from childhood throughout your years, you weave this sort of protective shell around yourself of things that have made you uncomfortable, things to spare you from agony and pain and repeating mistakes. And so when you work towards unweaving all of those, either false image of yourself that you have woven, or a lie that you've come into agreement with, or memories you have locked away, those things, many of those barriers that we're going to be trying to peel away, were put there by your own ego, by your own, and it's not necessarily a wicked and evil part of you, that this is just there to protect you. But the Ruach is basically walking through this with the Father, is saying, like, I don't need to be my own protector. And that's going to feel really, really scary. And so, like, as you're peeling back these layers, that instinct to protect yourself and to preserve yourself and to not go through discomfort is going to rear itself up and rebel. And so will, like, if you have demonic bondage and generational curses and things in your life, the closer you get to revealing the root of that bondage or that connection point, the more you'll have spiritual warfare, maybe physical illness, things and static going on in your external lives, temptations out of nowhere, so many different things, because in all reality, we're given all the authority in Messiah, but if you're not aware of the bondage that's even in your life, you don't have the authority and the ability to speak it out. And so a lot of this is going to be revealing parts of yourself that are wounded, parts of yourself that might be bitter, areas of unforgiveness. And like, it can even bring up, just by when you sit there and hold on to emotions that are previously uncomfortable, that you don't sit with, but allowing yourself to feel certain emotions will even trigger the memories that you might have forgotten, because you're allowing yourself to feel the emotions. And so, like, this whole process is gonna potentially be very extensive, and I'm gonna try to do my best on giving examples of like how to actually go through this. And I'm just not quite sure how to do it yet. But a couple of verses that I shared, basically, I'll just read a couple of these. So Isaiah 43:1. But now thus says Yahuwah, He who created you, O Jacob, He who formed you, O Yisrael, fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name, you are mine. So in these, I guess I'll say there's like a little, I don't know, hidden word study in here. If you look up Jacob and Yisrael and the renaming and why. So I have included in this packet, this section, in Genesis. So Genesis 32:22 through 32. And it talks about what Yaakov means. It talks about what Yisrael means. And then it's the text in where he's wrestling with the angel, and he ends up being renamed. So let's see. So anyway, so we are basically, I'll just kind of give basically the main idea of that. So Jacob, when he was born, his name kind of in essence means like supplanter, or the one who holds by the heel. Achob, which is the root word, literally means heel. And so his whole life, you see that he was second born. He didn't have the right to the inheritance, but he ends up basically bargaining the inheritance, the firstborn right, from Esau. And so then he was known as like a deceiver or a supplanter. But when he wrestles with the angel, he ends up not quite a victory, but a stalemate. So he wrestled with this angel, prevailed, and he is renamed Yisrael, which there's two possible meanings for Yisrael. So it can mean um, one who strove with Elohim. And so that word Elohim, I'm kind of scattering. I feel like I'm not really making any sense because I'm just rambling. But Elohim can be like the most high Elohim, and Elohim can also be like powers. It literally just means powers. So angels are powers, and technically we are light, eternal light beings. So it's one who strives with powers and prevails. Another potential root word is yashar, which yashar means uprightness or to stand up straight. So it's interesting. So that Jacob is basically taken from supplanter and deceiver, one who's not worthy of the inheritance, to Yisrael, the father of the Hebrew people, the crossed over people. Yisrael is upright before the Father, standing up straight. And Yisrael is also one who strives with Elohim and prevails. And so, what we are doing, I guess, the parallel between what Yaakov becoming Yisrael is similar to what we are doing now when we are wrestling with the inner parts. We are allowing the Father to wrestle with us. We are wrestling with the ego. We are wrestling with potentially demonic bondages in our lives. But because we are of the spiritual seed, we are of this Yisrael, we are wrestling and we are prevailing. So that's kind of how I'm choosing to, tie that in of like we're doing the spiritual wrestling, we are prevailing. But there's honestly so much depth to if you felt like doing a Hebrew breakdown on Yaakov into Israel. It's definitely a good one. Yeah, Jer.
Yeah, what I found interesting in the meaning of the word meaning to stand upright and before uh, powers and all that, it's it's quite interesting to me that he was touched on the hip and kind of a little bit not perfectly standing straight and upright, like damaged goods, so to speak, but not made perfect yet. And so if he's the father of all the Israelites, it would seem to be that we all are going to kind of walk a little bit crooked and hop a little bit. That's just what came to me because it's quite interesting that that was mentioned. He was touched in the hip and never again walked like, down the, you know what I mean. So anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, it is definitely interesting. And I mean, the text goes on and says that basically for all time, the Hebrew people didn't eat the sinew of the hip. And so, yeah, it's definitely interesting. It has significant meaning. And like, it's one of those things that I feel like if I really meditated on that a little bit more deeply, some other sort of depth might eventually come. But I definitely didn't focus on it. But yeah, that's definitely a good point. Um, all right. I'm trying to think of like where to go from here. Um, I think I've basically summarized a lot of the purpose of it. Romans 12 specifically is going to sort of serve as I'm getting this out of order. Romans 12 is going to sort of serve as like a spiritual inventory. This is a chapter in which Paul talks about offering your bodies as living sacrifices, but then it's this long list of instructions on like, I'm not expecting you to be perfect at all of it, but there's things like um, love without hypocrisy, serving um, with passion and rejoicing and being steadfast in prayer and not repaying evil for evil and trusting in the Father and weeping with those who weep. And so there's things that we're going to sort of go through. I'm going to figure out how to try to formulate a way that we're going to use this text as a sort of mirror of like, how difficult is it for you to be diligent in your calling, to be diligent in what you're called to do? How difficult is it for you to serve others more than yourself? How difficult is it for you, or how easy is it for you to trust in the vengeance and the justice of the Father without taking things in your own? Like, so sort of like going through and testing in yourself. Are any of these things difficult? Are there wounds surrounding any of these areas? Um, and so that's something that I'm going to kind of try to figure out. I started typing out a list, but I'm not quite sure how to formulate it yet. But that's something that's coming. Zechariah 4 is something else in the scripture, things that we're going to be talking about. So Zechariah 4 gives us a glimpse into the prophetic calling to rebuild the temple. So what we're doing now is basically burning it away and rebuilding from the very foundation of this temple. And so something that I wrote in here that you can kind of revisit, but I'll say in this video is the one who rebuilds the temple is Zerubbabel. So Zerubbabel is in Babylonian captivity until he's sent to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple. This is super like prophetic for what everything that we are doing right now, including the name. So Zerubbabel literally means Zeru, seed of Babel. So he is a seed or a product of Babylonian captivity. So this seed of captivity is rebuilding the temple. And so in our lives, we are seeing in this Passover season being freed from captivity, freed from bondage, but we are products of this captivity that we've been in. We have been strengthened. And just like how Zerubbabel was a product of his captivity and it strengthened him and prepared him to rebuild the physical temple, we now, in our natures of being products of all of this stuff that got the leaven in us in the first place, all of this stuff in our lives that caused traumas and blindnesses and, ego and all of these different things, as kind of messy as it is and difficult as it might be to get some of that stuff out, it went into forging who we are. And so we are a product of all of that. And it's all a part of strengthening us to prepare us to rebuild the temple. So that's why I've included that passage in there of reading through Zerubbabel's calling from the prophet Zechariah. So that's in there. And I think that's pretty much going over all of that. So that should kind of catch you up to what you have. It goes into some more detail and background and organization in the packet itself. But the next part that I'm going to be giving you is kind of that, I don't know, hands-on, being able to work through some of these things with the goal of getting that leaven out so that there's none of it that remains. And then we will have a meeting on Thursday, I guess, yeah, around the same time, Thursday, 12 Eastern, or we'll just do it next week around this time, but it'll be meant to be meaning our Feast of Unleavened Bread. So if you want to have literal unleavened bread with you and some wine or some grape juice or whatever, we can have that and partake physically of the unleavened bread. But we're going to kind of go over and talk about some of the scriptures more in detail. We will talk about some of, maybe some of the traumas and things that, or some of the leaven that working through some of these things, basically stirs up. Yes, Tina. And then after we will go back to the whiteboard and I'll talk about the 7 ruachos and the 7 deadly sins. But yeah, Tina.
What about 3 points now? Sorry, because of you adding bits as well afterwards.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Um, First one, Bobby, before I forget, this morning I was reading Hosea 4:3, and it made me think of your dream. You might want to read chapter 4 of Hosea. Um, the other thing I was going to say was really quickly, Zerubbabel. Babel means confusion, right? So would that be seed of confusion? Is that what his name means?
I mean, it could be. It could be. Yeah.
I always thought Babel meant confusion, but I know there might be other meanings to it. But I was going to go back to something Casey was saying about the inventory and stuff, and this was just my own revelations from fasting as well. I've recently finished a moral inventory and done what we call a step 5, which is reading it to somebody that we trust within the program. And I'm now starting step 6, and I've just been doing some questions this morning on this, and it really linked in with what you were saying about the warfare and the temptation. But I'll read a couple of the questions to you because it's just so step 6 is basically about being willing, not necessarily giving them over at this point, but being willing to give those what we call character defects to Yah. Okay. And the first question in step 6 is, what is the difference between saying you are ready, entirely ready, is the way that we phrase it, and being entirely ready? Because I mean, I've done quite a few step 4s as well, Casey, and I think in the past, because I've been trying to get to grips with the program and what we do, you kind of, and I feel like we do this with Pesach every year as well, you kind of start to realize there's more and more, like you were saying about the peeling of the onion, you were talking 12-step jargon, OriYah. I have a booklet that's called Peeling the Onion. So I know I can see you laughing too, Casey. It was like, wow. But it's like we may have said we were ready like a couple of years ago to some of these character defects, but sometimes it takes, and I think in the prayer thing that we did and I led the other week, I said that one of the prayers that comes from a 12 step has the line, give me the patience for the changes that take time. And actually, we can say we're ready, but Abba knows what's actually going on in here and whether we'd be ready. And the other question, which really I'm struggling to answer, if I'm perfectly honest with you at this point, is do I feel I would be less interesting as a human being without some of those character defects? And it's like, how do you answer that? There are, we're human and there are certain bits. And I know I've been letting go of a lot of, well, I'm going to be really honest. One of the things that came up a lot as my character defects was a victim mentality. And I want to let go of that. I truly want to let go of it. But it's only been really this last few months that I've started to enjoy peace and not the drama that would have gone with my other character defects, if that makes sense. So being fully ready to have let go of that over the last couple of Pesachs that I've done, probably not, because I was so used, ingrained in that drama. It seemed like an exciting part of life. And it's only, I think, as you start to mature in either age or this walk or the programs or whatever you want to look at it, is that you start to realize that you need that peace more than you need the defect. So I'll leave it there.
That was awesome. Thank you. Jer.
Yeah, just a couple quick things I wanted to mention. As everyone is well aware of, whenever you start peeling an onion, there's always tears involved. And they can often be burning tears, depending on the status of the onion that you're peeling. So I just wanted to throw that in. It's the only food that I know that causes tearing like that. And I love onions too. Anyway, and also I just want to give a thank you, Araya, for making that introduction, removing the internal leaven. Because when I read it, I thought this is very insightful and well structured and well composed. So I just want to thank you personally for putting this together, making the effort and taking the time. It doesn't go unnoticed or unappreciated.
Thank you. Oh, that means a lot. I was sharing, like, admittedly, I shared it in the leadership chat with Bobby and Haley, like my first version of the intro, and I was like, I feel like I'm rambling. But yes, I did put some thought into it, and I really, um, like, my intention went into it to be allowing or just allowing people to have the rock walk them through this process, I guess. And that will be my intention going forward. So I'm very appreciative that intention was received, I guess, if that makes sense. Like the intention wasn't lost. Casey.
No, absolutely. You're onto something like really important right now. Like you're like what you're touching on is something that everybody needs, that everybody could benefit from. This trauma healing, and it's all connected with
Mhm.
with the other topic that we were going to discuss, the seven deadly sins in the Ruach. I was thinking fruits of the spirit. So I'm interested that you're using the Ruach, the seven Ruach. I'm not saying that right. But but absolutely, and I wanted to comment on something that Tina said about what you were talking about was the emptiness, having an empty personality. Uh, we call it the hole in the donut, right? Like when we give up our character defects, then what's left, right? Well, we're imitators of the Most High. Right. So that's the goal, right? But something that I've struggled with is perfectionism, right? Because like honestly, I was such a bad person and I did so many bad things that I thought that I had to strive for perfection to be forgiven, right? So that's where I do so like I had to learn surrender in that area, right? Like I'll do the best that I can. I don't have to be perfect right now. That's where we trust that the Most High works all things together for the good of those who love Him, right? Like we don't have to be perfect. He can use our imperfections. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't, always try to be better than we were yesterday. But perfection is not a requirement for forgiveness. I just wanted to share that.
Hi, Eddie.
All right, time to go, especially since you just got a second lollipop. Hmm. Um, Sorry, I admit that I was not able to pay super well attention to what you were just saying because of a peanut, but I'm sure it was beautiful and amazing and very wise, and I can't pretend like I heard anything. I'm so sorry. But Addie got her second lollipop and she should be out. But anyway, yeah, Jer, sorry again.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to what Casey shared about perfectionist and being a perfectionist, and that seems to be the common cliche, phrase that everybody uses. Oh, he's a perfectionist, she's a perfectionist. And having been in construction most of my life, I used to consider that a very beneficial trait in order to achieve a higher standard of product, because I'm a perfectionist. But I realized quite a while ago now that I'm actually not a perfectionist, I'm an imperfectionist because I don't notice the perfection. I notice everything that is imperfect. I notice everything that's wrong. So it's the opposite of being a perfectionist. It's the things that aren't perfect that get my attention. So I call myself an imperfectionist, not a perfectionist. So I just wanted to, and I never hear anybody talk like that. So I just thought I'd share that with you, hopefully.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way, um, naturally, but it definitely goes back to childhood, like childhood issues for me are growing up and having achievement and doing things perfectly and doing things well with like where I felt worth something and valuable. Um, all right. So I do have the fruits of the spirit pulled up because it is related, but I just like the symmetry of seven deadly sins and seven ruachoth because I know that there's seven ruachoth. So I'm gonna pull up my whiteboard again. And the reason why we're going through this is basically as we're getting the leaven out, um, Messiah talks about this. It's applicable for many things, but in context, it was a demon being cast out and wandering through waterless places where consciousness can't take hold, and then basically saying, oh, I can't find a place to dwell. I'll just return to where I was. And he gathers seven spirits more wicked than himself and goes and finds the original vessel clean and swept up and inhabits this person. And the status of this person was worse off than they were before when the initial demon was cast out. So as we are working on rebuilding our temples and doing the work of excising this potentially demonic strongholds, excising the leaven from our lives, any pride and blindness and bitterness and all of these things, as we're getting these things out, we need to be making sure that we're inviting in the Ruach to be able to fill those empty places. And so we're going to have the seven Ruachoth to meditate on in this process of so we're going to look at the seven Ruachoth and we're going to meditate on inviting those aspects of Lady Wisdom, of the Ruach HaKodesh, in to fill those places when we're removing those things of leaven in our lives. And then I'm also going to go over like the seven deadly sins, or like things that would disrupt and destroy and get in the way of these things. So like also things to kind of just be aware of that we're removing. So I'm going to get back to our whiteboard. All right. So, oh, no, zoom in. All right. So these are the seven spirits. You could technically, if you really wanted just to be extra, you can do, I mean, I've done at some point, I don't know where it is though, but a Hebrew word study on each of the seven spirits where you're breaking down the Hebrew word and you're getting the value of each one. Wondering if I have it, if it's, I don't know where it is in here though. I don't have it right here. But anyway, breaking down each individual character would give you a lot of insight into each individual branch of the spirit. So, I've said it previously, but this seven branch spirit is represented by the golden lampstand, by that menorah where there's a middle branch and then there's three kind of branches on either side. I actually think in Zechariah chapter 4 that I printed, it talks about the lampstands. So each of the spirits of the Most High, the Ruachoth, each one has a branch on the menorah. And so we can think of this within our bodies. We want to have the fullness of the Ruach within us. So we want all seven lamps to be lit within us. We want a flame, a living flame on each one of these spirits. So, I mean, you could go into tying it into the chakras or the wheels of energy within the body. That's chakra just means wheel in Sanskrit. So there are energy points in our body. There are seven of them, which is our physical vessel connecting into our spiritual vessel. And so there are seven lights, seven spirits. It's all kind of related. And so there are things in this world that can get in the way of these seven spirits, which will go, I don't know why there's a purple square there. I'm assuming you guys can see that. That's so weird because I didn't draw those. Anyway, so just going back to the seven Ruach real quick. Ruach Yahuwah, so that's the spirit of Yahuwah. Two, Ruach Hokmah, this is spirit of wisdom. Ruach Binah, spirit of understanding. Ruach Etzah, counsel. Ruach Gibura, which is might or strength. Ruach Da'at, which is knowledge. And then Ruach Yirah, which is Yirah, which is fear or reverent fear. Something that I've noticed in the past, but it's very interesting, so I'm going to point it out to you guys. The Hey, the character Hey, which is means to reveal. It's a breath of life. It is a window into another dimension. It's like lo and behold something. So the Hey is at the end of every single one of these spirits except one, and that's knowledge. And so I'm not exactly sure how or why. Um, I'm sure there's meaning to it because the Hebrew language is perfect and there's not mistakes, but they all end in hey, which means um, each of these words, so chokmah, bina, etza, gebura, and yirah, each have an element of revealing the Father's nature. It is a breath, it is a wind, it is a window into the spiritual realm, the spiritual man. And so these seven ruachot are things that we can be meditating on to invite into our lives and to replace these issues, or like the leaven that we're removing. So wisdom and understanding and counsel and might, strength, endurance, knowledge, and fear of Yahuwah. So it's going to be kind of up to you guys how much you want to get into that, but that's kind of, I'll write it out in the packet and give you at least, I'll have it in that hopefully. So these are the seven deadly sins. On the left, right next to the numbers, is what's just widely accepted. So pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth. Next to pride, I wrote offense. Oh, somebody is doing it. Who's doing it? Bobby's doing it. All right, I got it off. I forgot to turn your cursors off. My bad. All right. Anyway, uh, each of these things, so pride, I wrote offense because it's very related. Envy, I wrote covetousness. Wrath, hatred. Another thing that isn't in like the main seven, but grief, complaining, lies. Each of these things are things that would get in the way of you operating in these seven spirits. But the thing I want to kind of note now while looking at them, just we're not going to go into a lot of depth, but each of these seven things you'll find is one of the root issues, or related to the root issues. And so, like going back to that onion, so we can observe our external show, what we present to the outside. We can observe our triggers. We can observe like our emotions. And when we get to the core, it's a lot of these things are rooted in pride or rooted in greed, rooted in lust. So a lot of these external behaviors are rooted in envy or rooted in gluttony, rooted in wrath. And so we can kind of use these seven deadly sins as a mental guide or check to say, okay, am I operating from a spirit of pride or offense or greed and these sorts of things. So it's not going to be all things because some of these are rooted in traumas and that sort of thing. So we're going to be working through all of it, but this is just kind of just a quick some of the things that are going to be covered in part two of this study. That's pretty much it. Oh, I have the seven, or not the seven, the fruits of the Spirit. So charity, love, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, generosity, gentleness, faithfulness, modesty, self-control, chastity. These would be the 12 that are given by the Catholic Church. I don't have any scripture for us, even though it's in the 9 fruits of the Spirit is in Galatians. You can study that if you want. I would use the fruits of the Spirit as well as something to observe. So if the 7 spirits of the Most High are the branches of the tree, those branches, so those spirits are what's going to be producing the fruit. And so like gentleness sounds like a fruit of like the spirit of counsel of and understanding. And so like these spirits lead into the fruit of the spirit. So you could kind of like use the fruits to trace back to the spirit and then basically invite those things into the empty spaces because we're excising the leaven and we're going to fill it with the ruach. Yeah, Casey.
Hi. So something I was thinking on, it was either today or yesterday, I can't remember, as far as the seven deadly sins, they are all rooted, peeling back this onion, they are all rooted in fear of
Mm,
something. And the fruits of the spirit are all rooted in love. And you know how it says the greatest of these is love. That's because they are all
mm,
rooted in love. So I was I was thinking on, since there's opposites of, like, they're basically opposites of each other, right? Um, so for wrath, you would have patience, right? So you would intentionally practice patience to overcome wrath. Um, for um, let's see, for greed, wouldn't it be like brotherly love? Isn't that
yeah.
one of them?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
generosity too. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, like, do you see where I'm going? And lust would be purity, chastity,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So, like, they have opposites, and there's actions you can take when you recognize them,
Mhm.
to oppose them.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah, absolutely.
that's what I was thinking on, and I was excited when you mentioned them. I was like, I was just thinking about this, um, because I always like to have an action plan. So, like,
Yeah.
when I do an inventory, I want to put a plan together for how to combat these things that come up. And so this was great. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing. And that's absolutely true. And like you touched on the root of fear and love. So that's like darkness and light, fear and love. And so like perfect love casts out all fear. And so really we are waging war, wading through all the other things to get to those cores and realizing that our true nature shouldn't fear anything. And our true nature should just be one of unconditional love. And like in the Hebraic understanding, ahava isn't one directional. It's not just a feeling. It's like a state of existence. It is just operating in this energy of love, and it's loving yourself, loving the Most High, loving your family, loving friends, loving animals, loving just operating in love. And this love then affects all that you do, and it fuels those spirits of the Most High, and it fuels all those fruits. Um, so we can either have the tree growing on the other end that's rooted in fear, and we have the seven deadly sins, and we have all our triggers, or we can have the other tree that is growing. And so we're gonna really, yeah. Anyway, that's yeah. Jer.
Well, not necessarily quoted, but fear has to do with punishment, and and perfect love casts out all fear, and the man who fears has not been made perfect. So it is definitely a contrast of fear and love. So just wanted to share that there's scripture to back that up.
Yeah,
More than that, I
absolutely.
just
Thank you.
so
But yeah, so I hope that all kind of made sense. I feel like I was really disorganized and hopefully it all tied together. But this is going to be the process that we're going to be trying to walk through to prepare for Passover, Pesach, this doorway of coming into covenant, of coming into going from death to life, from bondage into freedom, from captivity and exile and all of those things into freedom and trusting the Father and leaving our old ways behind and removing the leaven from our homes. So all of this is a doorway that we're walking through to receive greater revelation from the Father. So after Pesach, then comes the smoke and glory descending on the mountain, and the Father bringing the covenant down, and his people seeing his glory to a certain degree, and Moshe seeing the backside of the glory of the Father. So this Pesach is going to be opening doors for us to be able to ascend the mountain. We're going to have clean hands and a pure heart, and we're going to be able to ascend the mountain like Moshe, and we're going to be able to have access to greater things in the spirit and seeing more of the Father's glory. But this whole Pesach is kind of the leading, the very, very beginning point of what this is doing. And to start Pesach off, it's that Feast of Unleavened Bread. So from today to next week, we will have 1 week to kind of go through the text, write our notes. I am going to try to get, as quickly as the rock will allow me, the questions and kind of something to help you guys in that process. But on Thursday next week, we will come together and we will talk about these things and rejoice in what the Father's doing and celebrate getting this leaven out of our homes. So um, I think that's it, unless you guys wanted to talk about something, do something else. Yeah, Tina.
I did ask in the chat, but I'm not sure if you've seen it, but I had quite a prophetic dream last night that led me to Hosea. Um, and I don't know about anybody else, but I do feel like Abba is moving quite loudly in the body at the moment, but he's also moving in the world. And I've had a few numbers recently that took me back to the message that I put out on TikTok that went completely viral, unknown to me at the time. It was the first proper video I'd done on TikTok. And it was about him coming against those people that were hurting his children. And the dream I had last night was basically I was with my mother and my father. My father passed a while ago, but when I have dreams like this, particularly with my father in it, now that my dad's passed, it's normally meaning Abba. And I was with my father and I was talking to him, and he told me that my mother was having an affair and had brought the man she was having an affair with into the house. And I then saw my mother. I got very angry. I saw my mother, and she was languishing on a couch. OriYah, you might want to cover the ears on the little one for this one, but it looked like she'd just fornicated basically with that man and was looking very sultry and seductive. And I did get very angry with it. But when I woke up, he literally gave me instant revelation about it being about Hosea and about the people either proclaiming to be in the body or in the world that are still letting idolatries into their lives, I suppose, bringing in, that's what the representation was of my mum bringing in another man into the house. And at the end of it, when I woke up, the phrase, how gracious Yah is so far that he's let that happen. So it kind of tied in with Pesach. It kind of tied in with what you've just been speaking about. And I just know I felt when I woke up this morning from that dream, I woke with a lot of grief in me for what I'd seen in the dream, not necessarily because I know from the dream it wasn't actually about my mum and dad, but it was just about those idolatries that we let in and those people that are still, you know, ridiculing the members of the body because of what's going on and how they're submitting to Yah. And I think as well people in the world, but I'm not labeling people as such when I say that. I just mean those that aren't believers, those that are mocking, those that are just coming against us in general. I know we have to walk this out as Yahusha did, and I'm not saying that we don't do that. It's just the way the dream was to me. It was him reminding us of how gracious he's been, and maybe that gracious door won't remain open forever. just my interpretation of the dream. So I wanted to share.
There we go. Thank you for sharing. I was kind of interrupted on my end. I think I got the most of it though. Um, Casey, yeah.
Hey Tina, what was that verse you were given for Jose?
Well, I actually read the whole of Hosea, but the bit that stuck out for me for Bobby was chapter 4, verse 3. It says, "Because of this, this is in my scriptures anyway. Because of this, the land mourns, and all who live in it waste away. The beasts of the field, and the birds of the air, and the fish of the sea are dying." And because of Bobby's dream about the fish that were dead with the map, it just kind of stuck out to me. But the whole of her, to be honest, the bit that really stuck out to me for my dream was chapter 2. It was it because the second verse rather says, "Rebuke your mother, rebuke her, for she is not my wife."
Right. So that, do you guys ever get scriptures that you know are talking to you, like you feel it in your heart? I got that scripture, that verse 2, chapter 2, verse 2. I got that scripture months ago. Mine says, strive with your mother. Strive with your mother, for she is not my wife, nor am I her husband. Let her put away her whorings from her face, and let her adulteries be, and her adulteries from between her breasts. That is so, and it. Well, for me, it was a personal thing, but also it's the world right now, like because of, well,
It, it was
you
it
know,
was definitely a personal bit for me as well. And just to say, my mum has had breast cancer and only has one breast. But I noticed when I visited her recently, because she is in the grips of major gluttony at this point, that it almost looked because of the size of her stomach and she's got a scar down one side, so the scar's kind of inflated outwards because of it. It looked like she was growing her second another breast because of the shape and the size. And when I read that bit, I must admit I've been asking Abba a lot, and this is quite personal to me, so I'm sharing it. But I'm sharing it because it makes sense with those scriptures. Is I want to visit my mum quite a lot, but she has severe mental health issues, as I've told a few of you. And when I'm there, I I went this weekend just gone and I shared it because I lost the fear of going, but I have been physically attacked by her. And I believe it's because of the spirits in her, obviously not her, but the spirits that are in her, because it's basically like a schizophrenic type of prognosis. Not they've not actually formally diagnosed. But I have been praying to Abba a lot about how often can I go and visit, and I felt a release on that on Shabbat evening to go and visit her. But it was like I remember seeing something as I drove there with where it said on a sign, this road will be closed on this date, and it gave me like a 48-hour window. And I visited her Saturday evening and Sunday morning. And when I got there Sunday, she'd already started to deteriorate in her mood. Saturday was really good. Um, but I have not felt the compulsion to go back over the next couple over these days. Like that kind of sign to me from Abba was like, I'm giving you this window because you've asked if you can go and visit your mum, but it still isn't safe to do on a regular basis. And having that dream, reading that this morning, I don't think it's just about my mum. I will say it was a little, I feel like it was a little bit, but I do feel like it is like a prophetic warning to a lot of different people. So thank you though, Casey. Yeah, I got the same.
So something that my brain is kind of brought into is going back to Zerubbabel, which is seed of Babel or seed of confusion, product of confusion. And so a seed or a child, you can be a child of the father, or it's talking about mother. And so the um in Esdras chapter, so in second Esdras, he sees Lady Zion weeping. in the spirit. And she is weeping because she turned away, and like her children went away and she went away, and her whoring Lady Zion was whoring. But then the new Lady Zion, or the new Zion, turned into a glorious, radiant city. And so I think this is all sort of tying into like the original seed that went astray because of the original Israel, which was rebellious. And so we all, on like the macro or on the micro version, we all have our own Babel that we come from. So our own confusion, our own traumas and pains, and the negative parts of our previous life, basically, that we come from. So we are a product of these things. But we are going to strive with that nature that we come from to, like, from this womb of the physical reality, we're going to strive against that to be born again into the womb of Lady Wisdom, of this sevenfold spirit. So uh, that's just where my mind was going, of Zerubbabel, the seed of Babel, and we all basically are that. We must strive, wrestle. We must wrestle with the previous versions of ourselves, basically. Um, all right. I think that's good. I mean, I think we did a decent job. I let's see. We're at like an hour and a half. I'm okay with having a shorter study. If you guys are okay with having a shorter study, I have to get ready for my vacation and all of that. So, um, I will say this is going to be the last time I'm leading, I guess, this call or a study for 2 weeks, I think. So we'll have this Saturday and coming Saturday probably where I won't be here. I'll be in the chat. I'll be, present in the mishpachah, but I won't be leading anything, and I'll just kind of probably be observing. Apart from, I guess, Thursday when we have our Feast of Unleavened Bread, which will be like a fellowship thing mostly. So, um, I guess that's it. I will pray us out unless somebody else wants to volunteer to pray us out. And then after praying us out, we will just say our goodbyes and end the call. But all right, nobody's raised their hand, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go and pray. Oh, Father, thank you for bringing us together in this time and being able to fellowship, being spread out as far as we are. And thank you for helping this meeting, this fellowship, come together in a sense of my own lack of preparedness, Father, that you pieced it all together to where it at least makes sense somewhat and gives us a plan to go forward as we are preparing our minds, our bodies, and our spirits for your Pesach, for this feast of unleavened bread that, while we remove, if we want the leaven from our physical lives, Father, that we are putting even more effort into removing the leaven from our temple, from our vessel, Father, so that we can prepare as we are removing these things from our lives, that we are preparing to be filled even more fully with your Ruach HaKodesh and your sevenfold spirit, Father. I ask that you would be with each and every one of us as we work through this, that you would give us eyes to see and ears to hear and a heart that is just so ready and willing to be refined, Father. I thank you for your gentleness and your patience and your graciousness with us in this process, that you know we are flesh and we are weak, Father, but you are strong in our weakness, Father. So lead us, strengthen us, sustain us, Father, cover us, and just give us your supernatural strength and support as we walk through this doorway of Pesach, as we go within and we get the leaven out of our lives, Father. Increase the anointing and the favor on each one of us, and give us opportunities to see your face and really to grow in greater intimacy with you. I ask that that you would give me just the strength and the understanding and the guidance on getting this extra, I guess, part two to our homework finished, Father, so that we can have some sort of organized way of being able to sort through these things. So I just surrender that to you. And I surrender to you the rest of this week as we lay ourselves on the altar. And we thank you and we praise you for all these things in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. Amen. All right. Shalom, shalom, everyone.
Thank
Shalom,
you,
everybody.
OriYah. You said that you weren't
Shalom.
prepared, but it was wonderful.
I'm glad. It wasn't because of me. I was like writing things down before the meeting and like thinking I just need to surrender that it's just gonna probably be scattered. But thank you. I'm glad.
Good.
I'm grateful for the Father for still tying it up together. And I'm excited, honestly, to go through this process with you guys. It's the first like active bit of trauma healing we've done together, which I think is something that is so not as sought after in the faith community. We tend to seek the external spiritual matters without doing the internal work. And I feel like it's such a needed part of walking with the Father. So I'm grateful to be going through this with you guys, and I appreciate you guys being here and just even trusting me in this way to like go through these things because this is going to be vulnerable. And I'm grateful for you all. And I'm excited. I'm excited.
I know for me, this will
Go
be
ahead.
the first time I've done this deep of internal work for Pesach. So I'm excited to do it. Like I have been learning previously about the spiritual principles and the connections and things, but I've never done this like such a deep internal reflection. So I'm excited to do it. Yeah.
Yay. Uh, Letitia says she's excited. Beverly says, is there a recording on the trauma healing? This is kind of it. I have done like on my own. I have done content on TikTok and stuff regarding trauma healing, but this will be something that we work through together. And so this session is recorded, and then our next session when we actually meet and we work through some of these things together, like uh that'll be recorded and it should be potentially really good. I mean, the Father's going to be faithful to be found if we seek him, and we're bringing these offerings before the throne. And so he's not going to turn away because a broken and contrite heart is an offering that he does not despise. And so this is what we're going to be bringing, and I'm excited. Yeah, Beverly, I see your hand up.
Shalom, Mishpaka. I do apologize that I didn't have my face up. It's just that because being so new into the group, I wasn't aware of everything. So I will be more prepared next Thursday. I just wanted to share in regards to celebrating Pesach. I've been in the Torah for 6 years, and this year, and being in this group, and it's only been like maybe 4 to 5 days, has had me to really evaluate myself even a more deeper level of seeing that may not be working in my life, that there's other things based on trauma, based on fear, as Casey had stated, that I was like, okay, what are you doing, Abba? Like, I'm here and I see that you've already been working within me because on Sabbath, I went to a congregation that I had left for about 2.5 to 3 years, and the ex was there. And because of the situation on the trauma, I had to face some things, and the Ruach Hakodesh had said, "Do not be moved." Meaning, in other words, don't be moved by my emotions, don't be moved with my facial gestures, don't be moved by walking out. Stay firm, stay in place. And so seeing the same characteristics just helped me to see that there was no growth in the spirit, but there's still in the flesh. And I have a spiritual mom that I speak with in Mexico, and she just was like, Abba has already delivered you from this, proposed marriage, that your bridegroom is coming. Just be faithful. Just be true to who you are in him. And one of the things when Brother Gare was saying about the perfection and looking at imperfection was that even with Jacob, when he had that, hip that was out of socket, that we're not perfect, but in him we are. If we can just continue on moving by the Ruach HaKodesh and knowing that we are spiritual beings walking in this imperfected world, that is helping me to understand that this is all working out together for every single one of us, if not just so myself at this moment, that I'm seeing the full connection around, the full circle, of this whole thing. So uh, I do chat a lot, but being new in this group, I was like, no, just stand back. And I was like, no, I have to give this testimony. I have to share that what you are doing, OriYah, is being truly led by the Ruach HaKodesh. And where I have now just came in is like now understanding why Abba placed me in this place. Because I physically messaged you on your messenger and said, I want to be part of this because of the way that I saw how you were explaining things in a way that even if me being in 6 years has been done in such a perfect love and such gentleness that I was just like, I need that because I've been so harsh and being in a surviving mode that I don't no longer want to be surviving. I want to live. I don't want to just be existing. I want to live. And so thank you so much for allowing me to share that with you guys.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Amen. And thank you for sharing that. The Father's definitely already doing and moving and working, and He has started a good work in you, and He is going to complete it. And this family is something that, like, I have a hard time, like, my face getting all red. I have a hard time receiving certain things, but like, it just makes me so thankful that this family exists, that this is filling a need for so many people. And it just goes to show, like, you can be striving with the wrong people and operating in survival mode for so long with the wrong people in the wrong lane, and then the Father in His perfect timing choosing when to nourish and grow and um, do these things with the right body of people. And this is what, like, this is, we're creating true Zion, like the true kingdom, the reign of the rock, which is like the leading of the spiritual being, the spiritual man, and operating in a space of love and mercy and kindness. And like this heart, this ruach within us is creating, I mean, we're literally bringing heaven to earth. We are bringing the Shemaim to earth, and it's transformative. And so it reminds me what you were talking about. And like, I'm so thankful that you shared that testimony. But what I'm reminded of is like, you're already seeing in ways in which the Father is putting you into circumstances to test you and try you and to make you uncomfortable in this growing season. And so it reminded me of a conversation I had with another sister yesterday of what she's going through. And so right now, I believe that those who are fully plugged in will have experiences coming up this week and during this process that force you to confront, like, the Father's going to aid us in this process. The Father's going to be here with us in this process, and it's not going to be something that you have to like strive on your own for, but the Father Himself is going to bring you face to face with circumstances that, like, the previous version of you would have reacted in fear or shame or guilt or shut down or operated in like aggression and offense or whatever. He's going to be putting you in situations to choose rather than being a dead fish. He's going to put you in like a position, a crisis of, I can choose life in this circumstance. I can choose secrecy and hypocrisy, or I can choose truth and life and being authentic. I can choose shame and guilt and negative thoughts, or I can choose life. And so we're going to be presented in this time with just things happening in our lives that is going to start to challenge us and push us through um, that mold, essentially, of what the Father's basically turning us into. I don't know if that really made sense.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would just expect, like how Beverly like just was presented with this situation to sort of test Yeah, pruning. So be ready for it, expect it. Don't feel like it's negative, like the enemy's attacking you at all turns, because it's not. A lot of this is going to be the Father putting these things in front of you, to strengthen you and to prepare you and to even reveal, so you can pay attention to your emotions and feel, okay, what I'm feeling, this emotion, whether it's, fear-based or love-based or anxiety or whatever, like, why is the Father putting me into this situation? What am I anxious about? What is my fear? What is the root to this shame? And so we're going to really be brought face to face with that mirror. It's the refining fire. Yeah. And like, that's the thing of like, I think a lot of people don't fully experience the refining fire because they just expect the Father to do it all for them, that he's just going to like come in and clean everything up without us coming into agreement with the cleansing. I mean, we need to be there co-creating, working with the Father, proactively putting our attention and our intention towards this process. But he's the provider of the fire, the one who lights our lamps, the one who does the cleansing. So, um, yeah, Ruach is a flaming sword, and we're gonna light our lamps, this golden lampstand. We're gonna rebuild the temple. We're gonna get the leaven out. So much good stuff. But all right, I guess that's it. Beverly, thanks again for sharing. And yeah, you're new, but you're welcome, and you're just as much a part of this family as anybody else. And we're excited to like hear all the wisdom that you will bring to this to these meetings and these gatherings in the future, because you're coming at the perfect time. It's like
Amen.
right.
Thank you very much, everyone. Shalom.
Shalom, everyone. I love you all. I will see you guys next week.
Safe
And
travels, OriYah.
thank you guys. I know I'm gonna miss our Saturday studies, but I am so looking forward to the version of me that I will be when I get back. I will be more refined and ready to serve you all, and whatever else that entails. So I love you guys. Thank you, and shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.